Hi, everyone. My name's Seth. It's really awesome to see so many people turning out. For too long, I think the common consciousness has been captured by an idea that was popularized by this economist Milton Friedman, namely that the purpose of business and the sole purpose of business is to maximize shareholder value and nothing else. And not only has this idea of business caused a lot of otherwise good people to either start or work for companies that might have negative environmental or societal impacts, but just as unfortunately, it's prevented a lot of entrepreneurs from fulfilling the full potential of business. And thankfully, this idea is getting torn down brick by brick, and in its place, people like the people in this room are building up a much more inspiring notion of business. An idea of business that not only generates profits, but that improves society, the environment, or the welfare of billions of people across the globe. You guys are all sort of early adopters, but what's really awesome is that this idea is catching on. And we're seeing more and more activity in this space. And so it's a really exciting time. With that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this sort of trend as I see it with some numbers and some data. First, I'm sure you're wondering, who am I? So I'm Seth Bannon. In addition to being an investor in early stage social impact startups, I'm also a social entrepreneur myself. I founded a company called Amicus, which is a social good startup that builds tools for nonprofits and people who are organizing around causes that they really care about. But I'm not going to talk about that today. If you're interested, you can go to amicushq.com. What I want to talk about today is this idea. What is the purpose of business? So first, I'd like to ask you guys, like, what is the purpose of business? If someone was to ask you that, what would you say? To make money. There you go. That's a good one. Anything else? To create value. It's nice. Solve problems. That's a good one. Jobs. Create. Yeah, job. Next slide. So Milton Friedman said this. He said the sole purpose of business is to maximize shareholder value. And I actually, this was popularized from a op-ed that he got published in the New York Times. And it's such an amazing op-ed that I just want to read you one bit of it, because it's really astounding. So this is from a 1970 piece called The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Profits by Milton Friedman. And this is sort of the piece that got this thing started. So he said, the businessmen believe that they are defending free enterprise when they declaim that business is not concerned merely with profit, but also with promoting desirable social ends. That business has a social conscience and takes seriously its responsibilities for providing employment, eliminating discrimination, avoiding pollution, and whatever else may be the catchwords of the contemporary crop of reformers. Businessmen who talk this way are unwitting puppets in the intellectual forces that have been undermining the basis for free society these past decades. And this is how people think of business now, right? As you maximize profit, and if you have any other notion that you could do good with it, you're some sort of crazy man who's like undermining the basis of free society. Well, thankfully, there are a lot of people now who are rejecting this notion, and in its place are replacing it with a much more inspiring conception. And so this is interesting. Millennials were asked what they thought the purpose of business was, and 47% of them said that the purpose of business was to improve society and protect the environment. 47% of people. This was the first thing that came to mind, right, of millennials. And this is super, super exciting. And this is reflected in a lot of things that are happening in the world of business today. One of the most exciting is the rise of the benefit corporation. So because Milton Friedman sort of won the day, for a long time it's been illegal for people who run businesses to consider anything but shareholder value maximization.
So quite literally, if you were running a business and you decided not to do something that, say, polluted a stream, so long as what you were doing was legal, because you didn't want to pollute people's drinking water, if you couldn't show that that decision maximized profits, your shareholders could sue you and they would win. The law was very clear about this. Only in 2011 did 4 states implement a change in the law that allowed corporations to claim what's called a benefit corporation status. And what this did is it allowed people who run these companies to both consider shareholder value and societal and environmental impact. So up until 2011, it was illegal for people who ran business to even consider the social good. And the cool thing is that benefit corporations are taking off. So this is a graph of benefit corporations since they were introduced. 2015 is a projection based on how many have happened so far. But as you can see, this is, in the startup world, this is called hockey stick growth, right? This is like up and to the right. And it's really, really, really amazing because it's still a really small number overall, but the growth numbers are quite good. And there are a lot of reasons that are driving this trend. And while it's mainly being driven by the young, it's affecting people across business. So this is Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce, not a millennial and not a sort of goody two-shoes, you wouldn't say. He said the business of business isn't just about creating profits for shareholders, it's also about improving the state of the world. John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Foods, said business ought to operate with a higher purpose beyond profits. And so what I want to demonstrate here is that the leaders of business are also now starting to embrace this idea that business doesn't just have to be about maximizing profits. And there are reasons that they're embracing this. Impact companies as a class, companies that embrace this idea that business can be about both making money and doing good, actually outperform their peers. So if all you care about is making tons of profit, it makes sense to care about more than just profit. Someone did a study that showed that purpose-driven companies in the public markets over a 15-year horizon outperform their peers 10 to 1, which is a pretty massive number. There was a study done by Deloitte that showed that employees at impact companies identified themselves with their company 300% more than employees at non-impact companies. There was another study done that showed that impact startups had 3x Twitter followers on average than non-impact startups. So just a whole bunch of stats. And of course, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? It's much easier for a company that's literally saving the world to recruit people than a company that's not. It's much easier for that company to retain that talent. It's much easier for that company to get press because everyone loves a good story. And it's also been shown that customers of impact companies are both more forgiving of mistakes and more loyal over the long run. And I think one of the biggest things that will be pushing this trend is the talent war, right? So every company that's growing fast relies on attracting and retaining smart people who are furthering that company's mission. And this is a really amazing stat. So 83% of MBA students, and this was done last year, said that they would take a 15% pay cut to work at a startup that had environmental or societal benefits. These are MBA students. These are like the most money-grubbing people in our generation, and already this many of them have sort of seen the light, right? And just to give you a bit of perspective, 5 years ago, this number was, I think, 42%, and 5 years before that, it was like 13%, right? So this is really, really, really rapid growth. So if a company wants to compete in the sort of global marketplace of talent moving forward, they're going to have to bake social benefit into their business model. And I really do believe that this is a trend that's as substantial as the movement from desktop to cloud or from web to mobile, right? So soon, everyone's going to be talking about this movement from profit-driven companies to companies that are driven by both profit and impact. And so with that, I'll just say, like, you know, the future of business is up for grabs now. Like, what we consider business to be, the idea of business, the conception of it in people's minds is being rewritten, and you can all play a part of that, and so I hope you do. Thanks.